now.
Projects, we look at the whole thing. The whole thing's a scam. In fact, energy companies love it.
So is that part of UN Agenda 21, which they now also call UN Agenda 2030?
The UN Agenda, it's definitely UN Agenda. It's the Resilient Cities Agenda, the whole LED streetlights, smart meters, any of these, the XR, Extinction Rebellion, they're pushing smart meters, pushing LED, pushing the whole CO2 thing. Whole thing's a total scam. In fact, I don't know where they came from, but obviously they've got some fantastic financial backers, and they're in the media all the time, so you can tell it's not a groundswell. In fact, I heard that they did a demonstration in London, and all the people who were demonstrating were being paid. So that tells you all you need to know.
So climate change, in your opinion, is not happening. It's not real. The CO2 scare, it's not really a problem. How is it connected to 5G?
Well, climate change, to be fair, there's always been climate change. It goes back, thousands of years. You only have to look at the models to show that climate changes. I mean, that's just a matter of fact. It'd be stupid to think that it doesn't. The impact man has on that are, probably minuscule compared to either volcanoes. The sun itself actually does regulate quite a lot of what goes on the earth. For people to think that man has some major detrimental effect, I'm not sure that they don't, they will have some effect, but whether they have the major effect that's been trying to be purported by these groups, it's fake. It's absolutely fake. It's a fake. The Earth's got this fantastic way of balancing itself. I mean, if I pour more CO2 into the atmosphere, well, the plants, it's the green gas. So if you put more CO2 in, then the trees will grow faster. You'll get more greenery, and then that will then cool the planet. So, and also, the temperature rise. These temperature rise readings that are taken from airports. Normally when you take temperature rise, or these temperature and weather gauged areas, the airports, ex-military bases, now all those military bases and airports, etc., where they're taking these measurements, you've got 4 more radar, 4 more 5G type equipment, 4 more planes coming in. If a plane's coming in to land at an airport and it's got radar on it, all that equipment where you're taking the measurements from is going to increase. Because obviously there's microwave radiation in air. What's coming out the front of that plane? There's microwave radiation in air. So if you've got antenna systems on the ground and you're measuring the temperature's going to increase. I would expect, in fact, I'm surprised that the temperature haven't increased significantly more because of where they're taking the measurements from. The measurements are mainly taken from military bases or airports, where, you need to understand what's going on with the weather in a particular day in its locality. And then all that information is collated at a central point. This was happened during the war. All of those areas have been polluted with a lot more microwave radiation. That microwave radiation in air increases the temperature. That is basic physics. So if I fill a cityscape with lots of these transmitters and antennas, and that's the plan for 5G, billions more antenna, billions more transmitters, I'll increase the temperature. I will increase the temperature. That's basic physics.
So why is the mainstream media massively promoting climate change and the CO2 scare and say that practically that the world is going under? And people are protesting and are afraid, but they don't really talk about the dangers and health effects of electromagnetic radiation and 5G.
Absolutely, they're totally well into once again, I think like the government, your media have been hacked. So all the mainstream media has been hacked. It's only the alternative media that are actually covering the realities of what's going on now. Anybody that gets their information or their news from the mainstream media, believe us, they're just brainwashing. They're basically propaganda tools. We are in a very, very sophisticated war. And obviously they've declared war on the people. I'm pretty sure they've declared an illegal war on the people because of this technology, this weapons deployment in our streets. And obviously the mainstream media are part of the propaganda tool on the government side to make sure people are asleep. So they don't wake up to what's going on. And believe us, they need to wake up now. They don't wake up in the next 2 or 3 years. Believe us, a lot of them are going to be dead. We've already seen in the gated area 23% increase in stroke from the introduction of 5G. This is the 5G on the streetlights. So they haven't turned it fully up yet. It's not fully operational, but we've already seen a 23% increase in stroke. We've seen a massive increase in cancer deaths, heart attacks. All can be shown in the science that this type of radiation causes that harm to the human. And like I said, definition of a weapon system is something that's designed to do harm. And these products are designed to do harm. I can prove they do harm. Science says they do harm. We've got the epidemiological data showing that it has caused harm. That is an attack on the people. These are illegal fitments. There's been no environmental impact analysis done, no health impact analysis done, no public consultation. We've got these technologies coming into our streets, and that in itself is illegal. So they're legally deploying equipment that they don't want to actually assess to say how safe it is. And all they're doing is they're telling you it's safe. Anybody that believes anything the government says today, there's something wrong with you. So you've got a mental incapacity. There's something wrong, whether it's cognitive dissonance or that you believe what your government tells you today. Believe there's something you're not well.
They're planning on putting up, 53,000 satellites around Earth to create these rays from the 5G smart grid around Earth. Was that what it's?
Well, that's what they're purporting that. And I think the reason why they're doing that, they're trying to get people to put their head down. What I'm going to say to people, satellites in the sky are basically mirrors. Not all of them, but most of them, because you have
mirrors.
They're just a mirror in the sky. It's the same as Atlas, all right? It's a reflection. So what you do, you've got a ground-based weapon, fires a signal up to the satellite then focuses it back down to a target on the ground. So people have to remember, the only way those satellites will work, they need ground-based stations to drive them. So don't get too worried about these bits of mirror systems in the sky, because they really can't affect you as long as we take out.
They cannot affect you.
Well, they can.
So we're not being radiated all over the planet.
Yeah, you'll be irradiated all over the planet, but what you've got to remember, the equipment's on the ground. The equipment's on the ground. So people don't, because I know a lot of people, I've heard them say, oh, it's terrible if they put them up, that's it, we're finished. No, the main driver of that satellite equipment, the weapon system, is actually on the ground.
And the 5G antennas, their beams cannot travel a long distance, so they put it up just outside of people's homes, right?
No, they travel a long distance. This is another smoke screen by the industry. These are not millimeter waves. Millimeter waves don't travel. They do travel quite a distance, but they don't travel very well through brickwork and concrete. Where sub-gigahertz travels with you through brickwork and concrete. And that's why the antennas that they're bringing into your cityscape are sub-gigahertz. So it's a lie. It is a fabrication, another deception by the industry to say that. They don't travel very well, so we're having to put them up all over. No, they're putting them up all over because they're going to kill you. Their plan is to murder you, so they're putting them up all over. Right? These are sub-gigahertz transmitters. They have massive, they have long range radar. They've got massive capacity to travel in the built-up urban environment. That's the lie. They like it. The industry is a total fabrication. It's a deception.
So you're saying that climate change and the fact that we're hearing about it every day, we're now in 2019 in November, and that is really the big story all the time. It's a diversion away from 5G?
Total diversion. The whole climate change is a total diversion. I've been listening to the climate change argument since the 60s. It's went on and on and on and on. It's an emergency. There was emergencies in the 80s. We've got this climate emergency. The world's going to end. It's ended in 10 years. We'll be all dead by the next millennium. Didn't happen.
But there was a book or a manifesto made by the Club of Rome talking about if you want to implement a problem, that could be the danger of climate.
Well, what you do, you frighten people. See, I frighten people by telling them the truth. I tell them the truth. I tell them 5G is going to kill them. They try and get me locked up and sent to prison.
Yeah, and please talk about your story, because you had a big problem with your local council in Gateshead. And I think if you can just briefly tell people your story of what happened there. And there was actually a judge who said that you were in fact an expert. So that's also very interesting. Please tell us your story there. What happened?
What happened, I actually wrote to the local authority with my concerns about the technology, because I've measured radiation in people's bedrooms. We had a lot of people getting nosebleeds. The radiation levels were illegal. I was measuring 2,000 and 3,000 millivolts, average about 1,200 in bedrooms in the gated area.
And you did that because?
I had a couple of neighbours who knocked on my door and were asking me why they were developing nosebleeds after the installation of these LED streetlights. So when I started investigating, I measured the radiation in their bedrooms, and obviously it was pretty toxic. So I realised what was going on. I wrote to the council. I thought they'd made a mistake. So I wrote to the council and I said, look, I need to find out about this technology. They sent us all of the information on a freedom of information request, but the technology, the company behind it, were lying in the technical output that they sent to the council. There was a few serious anomalies. Didn't make any sense. And obviously from a technical perspective, it wasn't making any sense at all. So consequently, I pushed the council. I went into the council. I had a meeting with the councillors and I actually did his full talk, a full council meeting. There were 60 councillors there. The mayor, the whole, they were all there. And I went through the technicalities and asked a couple of questions. They thought it was all a little bit funny. And I then turned around and I said to the chief executive, when this comes out, you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. This is genocide. This is a crime against humanity and breach of the Nuremberg Code. And I walked out. I then, because they obviously just weren't listening, yeah, whether it was stupidity, ignorance, greed, or complicity to the crime, the genocidal plot, the crime that they were committing on my countrymen, women and children. And then what happened, I then set up a Facebook campaign, we got a few people started making a bit of a noise. The next minute I was served with an injunction from the council to gag me, and I was gagged for over 3 months. I couldn't speak about 5G, couldn't do anything, because only the court injunction, it was to stop me from posting anything on social media.
Because they wanted to jail you if you did?
I'll jail you straight away, you're in breach of an injunction. So that was an interim injunction. Anyway, when we got to court, we eventually got to court, which took 3 months, I had all the documentary evidence to show that this was genocide, and to show that the technicality of the equipment wasn't what the council was saying it was, but it was in fact part of a weapons programme. So anyway, I get into court. The chief executive got up, perjured herself. She said I went to attack her in the chamber at the full council meeting. The mayor said I went to attack her in the full council meeting. And the judge, fortunately, there was a chap, a guy called Stephen, he was actually in the public gallery and he videotaped the whole thing. The council didn't know that. And obviously we presented to the court that recording of me not attacking the councillors, not attacking the mayor. And the judge was like, well, I can't, he's standing there, and obviously I see him wagging his finger at you at the end, and then he walks away. He doesn't go to attack you at all. Can you explain to me why are you saying that you went to attack you? They didn't know what to say. They just proved themselves. So what they did, they fabricated this whole evidence to the judge. Well, he obviously could see through it. He's been, seen it before. They had 11 officers from the council all made and fabricated evidence against me in that court case. However, the judge saw through the whole thing and said, I'm going to really skeleton argument after lunch. Well, my skeleton argument, right, in that case, because they thought they had a slam dunk, they were just going to get me gagged and I won't be able to speak about 5G ever again. But after the lunch, we broke for lunch about 2 o'clock, came back after lunch, and obviously in that time period, the judges read my skeleton argument. And in that skeleton argument, what it stated was, no authority has the right to harm man. This is in breach of the law. This is in breach of God's law. Right? This technology is dangerous. And I went on to break down all the technology, all the exhibits were there, where I showed what the technology was, how dangerous it was, and how it harmed these children. We also had a number of witness statements, people that were ill, where they'd been to doctors, where they'd all been occasioned. There was one chap, David. David's wife had died of a brain cancer that came on very quickly. She died within a couple of months. Very strange brain cancer. Unfortunately, he couldn't actually come to the court case because he died. He died of a heart attack in his own home prior to the court case. And, one of the things that we've seen in Gates, and like I said, we saw this 23% increase in stroke in the area since the deployment. This 5G is a killer. There's nothing more. It's a killer. The judge then...
Had they already implemented 5G in Gateshead,
yes,
where you live? Really?
5G, they started deploying 5G as early as 2011. 2011, it started coming on streetlight systems across the country in 2011. That was the earliest we have of it. The judge in the case turned around and said, this man is very, very expert. And he said, I'm telling Gateshead Council now, you debate the 5G risk. The public have a right to know. He said, this is democracy in action. Well, the whole court just was because the court was absolutely rammed to the ceiling. And so we've got a result. However, the council haven't debated it. They can't debate it because they're going to prison. They've committed a crime on the people that we've discovered. And obviously that court case, we got the coverage all over the world, which was fantastic. And that's what set off a lot of people starting to question, hang on a minute, if this chap's going to court over 5G, what is 5G? Well, unfortunately, if you've listened to any of the talks that I've been involved with, I'll tell you, it's a weapon system. And
you have a lot of slides, and you're really going in depth in your lectures so that people really can hear what it really is. And you are very thorough in your description, of course.
One of the things that's, technically it's pretty demanding. I try and keep it as layperson terms as possible so that people can understand the existential threat of 5G to them. the good thing is, well, not a good thing, but the really interesting thing, the fact that they've put 5G on every single street light, and the street light itself is not a street light. It is masquerading as street lighting. It's part of a weapons program called soft kill. And what you'll see is, because of the cumulative damaging effect of the LED street light, these blue phosphor-coated LEDs, you'll start to see massive increases in death rates, cancer rates, chronic issues. The whole thing's going to start to go like that. You're going to see that hockey stick. But fortunately, we are too early. Don't let anybody be despondent and think, oh, well, we'll just give up and die. No, we start to fight back. We start to be the resistance. We start to get together and fight against this crime because we're too early. The plan has been discovered. Their plan to kill everybody is up to 2025. Well, we've got years left. We just need to wake people up. People just need to wake up. We need to take down these criminals and the criminal enterprise. They've got their wetted signatures on this equipment. They've allowed a technology into your street that is illegal, unlawful, uninsurable, untested, in breach of the Nuremberg Code. That is a crime. This is a massive crime against humanity, and we can prove it. We have the technicalities and the science that substantiates everything that we're saying. We just need to get them into court. We need to get these criminals into court. Right? We need to see them behind bars for the rest of their life for the crime they've committed against us.
So what about the LED light bulbs that people have in their homes? Are they dangerous as well?
It's a totally different, an LED light bulb in your ceiling in the home, and it's got a diffuser on it. So obviously the light is reflected, so if light hits that table, it reflects it in my eye. That's reduced the optical radiation hazard significantly. All right. So don't worry about those. I wouldn't worry too much about your screen. I would say don't use screen time too much. Children, no.
When you say screen, you mean being in front of the computer?
Yeah, computer screens. Children shouldn't be on computer screens. Children shouldn't be on small devices. And the reason for that is they've got a clear lens. So they take more of this radiation and it's far more toxic to them. Children should absolutely, it should be like smoking. Children shouldn't be allowed to be on these screens or these laptops until at least they get into like 18, where the protection of the eye, the cornea, actually reduces the optical radiation hazard to people when they get to about 18, 20-year-old. But children should never ever be anywhere near them. And if they are going to be playing on them, because some people are going to just carry on, make sure they're at distance. And if you can see that light radiation anywhere near the skin, I see kids where they've got them, right up against their eyes, they're lethal. The gaming headset's lethal. That's basically a device in a box with a set of magnifying glasses. So virtual reality, that's a complete no-no. A lot of technologies that they're trying to test on you are all illegal, all pretty toxic,
Some people say that 5G is connected to AI, artificial intelligence. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it is connected to AI. They're developing AI computers. Well, what I'm going to tell you about an AI system, if I put a weapon in your street and you connect it to an AI system, the AI is going to see pretty quickly that the only threat to its own survivability is mankind. It's going to kill you.
Smart meters as well, and what they call Internet of Things.
The Internet of Things, the kill grade of things. The more these transmitters you put, everything that can possibly be hardwired should be hardwired. Everything. Your computer in the home should be hardwired. If you've got Wi-Fi, it should be on demand only. Very simple to put a demand only Wi-Fi system on everything. Your mobile phone. Your mobile phone's emitting radiation when it's not on. Why? Why is it emitting radiation when it's not on? It's absolutely ridiculous. It should only be in use when it's on. So we can have these technologies, we can have all these technologies, and we can have them and they can be a lot safer. All technology carries with it a risk, but there should be a risk-benefit analysis before any technology should be brought to the market. And these technologies, 5G technologies, smart meters are a fire hazard. They're illegal, they're experimental. The amount of fires that have caused across the world is unbelievable. And what's happened, you've got the energy companies covering it up. They're blaming boilers, something else, or the fitter didn't fit it correctly. Did he not? No, what happened, the design of the smart meter, because it doesn't have a surge arrestor, it's compromised. All meters have a surge arrestor for a reason. It's so they can take an energy surge to the ground. It's to save your appliances from bursting into flames. Or the meter, well, a smart meter doesn't have one, it's consequently it's fire risk.
So some people are actually lucky enough or even able to refuse having a smart meter rigged up in their homes. Then if they live in a flat or an apartment or just anywhere, they will be radiated from other people's wireless smart meters, right? What do they do? What can people do to protect themselves also from 5G and even the street lamps that you talk about?
Protective eyewear is a must, but also speak to your neighbours. Tell your neighbours how dangerous this technology is. It'll give them diabetes. It'll reduce their life expectancy.
But they probably don't know anything about all this. You have to start from scratch, right?
Yeah, you need to educate them.
But what if they refuse to listen to it and just think that you're a nutter?
Sue them. They're trespassing on your home with a noxious substance. They're trespassing on your home. If I was to blow smoke through your letterbox all the time, then that's a noxious substance. Well, microwave radiation is a noxious substance. Sue them. If they don't listen, and take a flat off them, because you actually have a case. They are emitting radiation into your home, and that is in itself an offence. It's trespass.
Do you think you can say no to the electricity company to have a smart meter?
You must say no.
But what if they just turn off the electricity?
Well, then you should get them into court. Sue them. Get them into court. They're illegal. Smart meters should be illegal. It's only because your government have allowed it to happen.
Yes, but if it is by law, mandatory.
Can't be any law. There's no law. I think it was Sir William. No law can be drafted that is in breach of God's law. And God's law states quite clearly, you cannot be harmed. You cannot be bodily harmed. If I bring any technology, their laws don't stand. We need to take them into court and we need to test these criminal enterprises, whatever they call them in law, to put a smart meter in. It's absolutely ridiculous. So they can put a piece of equipment in that harms the citizen and think they can draft a law around it. Well, no, they can't, because it's God's law. And they lose their authority on trying to harm you.
So what can we do if you have any advice for people listening to this and actually thinking that it's very, very frightening to hear all of this information? What can people do from now on?
Well, anybody in Denmark, across the world, get involved locally with groups. You always have to be mindful. There's a number of groups that have been already compromised. Obviously, there's groups that are pretty solid. Be the resistance. Whether you do it yourself, whether you get involved with other numbers of people, be the resistance. Get involved with a number of different groups. Anybody wants any advice on who can be trusted or not, just ask me. I'm the person to go to if you want to know what groups can be trusted, what can't be trusted, because I can smell them out pretty quickly. I know exactly what they're about. Anybody that calls me, for instance, because obviously I brought this whole bit of information to the wider group and the world about the dangers of 5G.
What was the result of the court case?
The court case, the judge wouldn't gag me. What he said was, this is in the massive public interest, this is democracy in action. He actually encouraged us to carry on the campaign. So the council were pretty upset. Obviously, they went off with their tail between their legs. But that's just, this is just part of, they have to understand that they're part of this agenda. They've signed up to it, this UN Resilient Cities agenda. They all have. All your councils are signed up to this agenda. It's not just the, it's not just the individual councillors, but they're all acting illegally. This technology is illegal.
Do you think that we can stop it? Do you think people can actually stop
Absolutely.
5G from being rolled out?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be fighting if I thought I'd only take a fight on if I can win it. And I'm pretty sure that we win this, because in all battles, in all, whether they be spiritual battles or other, God always wins. So this is a God's fight against evil. And believers, we win this. Absolutely. I mean, think about it. The serendipitous event that I was put into an environment where they were testing this equipment. So we've got all of the statistics, we've got all of the data, the scientific data to show the significant harm to the person. The diabetes increases, the heart attack increase, the cancer increase, all that data is there and available for anybody who wants to fight against this. We have all the technical evidence. We've got the legal documents ready. If anybody wants to see them, if they want any help technically to take a court action, just come and see me. It's all there. I'll help anybody to try and stop this crime.
So you believe in God, and you talk about a spiritual war, that this is actually a spiritual war as well. But if there is a God, in whatever shape or form, why would he allow 5G to be rolled out?
Well, if you from a spiritual perspective, it's quite an interesting conversation. We'll probably go another hour or so to have a talk about it. This is a spiritual war, without doubt. Why would anybody want to kill all biological life? That's just as a matter of fact. So the spiritual war's on. I've never been a religious person, but I'm going to tell you now, the contracts that the cabal have, they are with God. So you'll find that the contractual laws, right, your legal process, the laws that are laid down by your courts are all God's law. It's God's law for a reason, because God's real. Anybody who said that he's not, doesn't actually understand contract law, because all of the laws that have been written actually are predicated on God's law. So why? If God's not real, why are they all predicated on God's law? It's not some mythical, and if you understand quantum mechanics, simulation theory, and this whole maths, the geometrician of the universe, let's call God, geometrician of the universe, of course it's man-made. God made. Anybody that says that this just came out, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life is this, the Big Bang Theory. How any scientist can actually hold their head up and talk about the Big Bang Theory where it all came out of nothing. Come on, that's about as ridiculous a proposition as, how do you get something from nothing, from a scientific perspective? It's ridiculous.
We could actually talk for hours, and I think we should continue sometime in the future, and there are many topics to discuss also, well connected to 5G and the whole problem here. But if people want to get in contact with you and want to learn more about what you're saying, or even having you to come to their place for a lecture, how can they find you?
They go to Save Us Now. It's www.saveusnow.org.uk. You can get contact there, and they'll pass their details over to me. So that's probably one of the best ways. If that's compromised, there are other Facebook, YouTube channels you can make contact there, because unfortunately the communications are compromised. That's just a given. The cabal don't want me speaking to people across the world. If you find it difficult to make contact, which a lot of people do, just remember this: you're obviously important in the fight, because the people that they do get to contact me may not be as instrumental. So if you do get blocked or challenged and you don't get a reply, remember you're being blocked. That's the most important thing.
It's been absolutely informative, fascinating, and intriguing to have you on the show, and I want to thank you very much. Thanks. Mark STEELE, for doing this interview with Age of Truth.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.